If I'm being honest with everybody, even though this has been a good episode of Unsolved Mysteries, it's also been one of the more downer episodes. We had a lot of it was just murder and death, and a person who was wrongfully convicted of a crime, in my opinion. So, with that said, I hope you are all ready to end this episode of Unsolved Mysteries on a high note, ladies and gentlemen. I present to you a I think it was a lost loves case, which it's kind of rare. It's lost loves cases, especially as you get further along in this series. Lost loves is one of those kind of cases that although it makes you feel really good at the end, it's one that only is kind of sporadic, if I remember correctly. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the case of the undelivered World War II letters. Basically, during World War II, the armed services had their own version of the postal service, which was called, I think it was called V Mail for Victory Mail. Anyway, a lot of letters were sent out, and sadly, they did not all reach their intended recipients. And this happened, for many reasons. However, a bag of these letters were actually located in the house of one of the soldiers' wives during the time, and she was embarrassed to have the bag because, her husband passed away, and she didn't know what to do with it. Apparently, it sounds like that the husband may have forgotten that the bag was up there. However, the Postal Service took it upon themselves to help track down each and every one of the people that, these letters were sent out to. And we're going to hear about that case right about now. Okay, let's pull up the video. There you go. So 3, 2, 1.
Letters from home. Each day, millions of them are sent to American servicemen fighting on distant battlefronts. Because of a war postal system called V-mail, they can be flown through.
Here's a little bit of trivia for you for about your boy GCurse here. When I was really young, I'm talking about like say 3, 4 years old, really, really young. When I used to see old black and white television shows, I honestly thought that that everything was black and white when I was really young. I thought that like we were literally just monochrome colors, black and white. I'm not sure why I thought of it, but that's what I thought. I thought, originally everything that was on I originally thought when I was really young, everything you saw on television was how life was. So black and white, black and white.
Throughout the world, reaching distant points safely and with amazing speed.
During World War II, thousands of soldiers said goodbye to their loved ones. And almost every GI made a parting promise that he would write home as often as possible. Their letters, carried by the military V-mail service, were the only link between them and their families. Some would return, others would not. For the relatives of those GIs lost in battle, the last letter home became a precious keepsake.
I cannot think of a more honorable thing than to give your life protecting your country. To me, that is like the height of what hero is. Nowadays, we are told that that sports athletes are heroes. That people who basically treat other people like shit are heroes. And to me, a hero is somebody who's willing to lay down their life for their country, like say in World War II.
A memory of lost love. "41 years after the war ended, on February 4th, 1986, Mike Minguez, a pest exterminator, was spraying the attic in an elderly woman's house in Raleigh, North Carolina. In the corner, he saw some letters spilling out of a laundry bag. Mike Minguez had in fact discovered a military duffel bag filled with hundreds of unopened letters written by soldiers during World War II.
The longer I looked, the more incredulous I became, really. There was just something about the the insignia across them. I'd never seen V-mail before. I'd heard the term, and
Until this episode of Unsolved Mysteries, I never even knew what female was. I didn't even hear of it before. So this guy, he had a little bit more knowledge than I did. I was totally blind when I very first saw this episode, and I thought, the postal service was, when I was younger, was the only service. I didn't know that stuff like this existed.
knew that generally anything with V in it was World War II vintage, and it was really apparent from the very beginning that there was something here that was just really strange. I really think it'd be best if I took this mail to the proper authorities.
Mike learned that the elderly woman had a nephew who'd been a crew member aboard the SS Caleb Strong when it was bound for North Africa in May 1944. The troops on board had written 235 letters home and stuffed them into the duffel bag. The woman's nephew had vowed to mail them when he returned to the USA, but he'd forgotten. He died about 1980, and the woman had been too embarrassed to say anything.
I do feel bad about the lady. Like, I'm pretty sure she thought that if she came out and she's told the armed services that she had this duffel bag, I'm sure she thought that maybe she would have been punished for it. I think at the most, I think that they would have given her a simple thank you. Like, I don't think that this would have been something that could have been punishable, as a punishable offense. I view it as a simple accident. It isn't like her husband kept these as, kept them, secret. That way nobody could ever get them. I think he brought them home with the intent of dropping them off, and maybe something happened or whatever, and his attention got diverted. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, months to years, and ultimately he just kind of forgot about them.
After promising never to reveal her name, Mike convinced this woman to release the letters to him. The letters were sent to Meg Harris of the Postal Service. 92 GIs on board the Caleb Strong had written letters to over 150 friends and family. One by one, the U.S. Postal Service delivered the letters from 89 of the soldiers. Only 3 could not be tracked down.
Okay, so there was a total of, I think, 92 of my math is correct, and my math is mathing. But yeah, that's a pretty good percentage completion rate. Only 3 left. Hot damn,
We're trying to locate a former private John J. Thomas. You have to be real careful when you start telling them about this mail. You kind of lead into it slowly because you don't want anybody to go into shock. And you feel a lot of the closeness of family ties. The whole experience has been one where you realize how much people care for each other and how much they continue caring even after 40 years.
Still at sea, May 1944. My precious wife, darling, I sure miss you. I wish I were back with you right now. It seems so hard to write you, as all I can think of is how I love you and long to be with you. The boat is rocking, so I can't write too neatly. Merrill, darling, I love you and hope that we'll soon be together for good. From what information we can gather, I believe the big invasion is on, so I'll be stuck overseas until the war is over. I love you, my darling. Your husband, Frank.
If anything, I'm pretty sure that the people who got these letters, I'm sure that they wouldn't be mad at all. Like, I think if anything that they'd be grateful. Like that they got like that, possibly that one last letter from their loved one. So I don't think that the elderly lady who originally had this bag, I honestly don't think she had anything to really fear about.
Merrill Page Rapley is a retired teacher who was married to Frank Rapley, a B-17 turret gunner. His plane was shot down over Austria in 1944. Merrill Rapley never remarried. She's been a widow for 44 years. Receiving Frank's last letter was a surprising and poignant moment.
I was shocked. It tore me all to pieces. And it was just as though we were there together, and just as though he was talking with me.
And this is kind of what I'm talking about, that basically she, it's something to be grateful about. So yeah, overall, I'm very happy that these people are getting like that that last little. It's like another form of closure, to be honest. I would give anything to get like one letter from my mom before she passed away. But my mom, she was never really one for writing letters, and we lived together, so there's no real need for her to send me a letter. But I mean, like, it's just the thought of getting that one last chance to see or hear something from a loved one, that possibly makes it, that makes it all the much better.
And of course, I guess I was more or less in a state of shock, but it was the most wonderful letter I had ever received from Frank, even though all of his letters were very dear to me. But after waiting that long and still being able, after 42 years, to get another letter from a man that I still love, that was just something that only the Lord can understand the depth of the meaning of it. The short 2.5 years I had with him was just equal to a lifetime.
Damn, that is loyalty, if you ask me. She was only married to her husband for 2.5 years, and then she spent 44 years as of getting that letter, as a widow. That is loyalty. You don't find loyalty like that much anymore nowadays. It's like a lot of the times, as soon as somebody gets divorced or another person or the person dies, they're already looking for another relationship. Loyalty like this is something you should really value.
For me, that's why I never did remarry. Nobody else could ever replace him. And I have every letter that he's ever written me, but this, above all, was the most special one.
Are you sweet? Just another line today, as I'm always thinking about you and may not be able to write for a few days. Haven't seen land yet, but expect you soon. There is about 6 hours difference in time here, so I often try to think of where you are and what you might be doing. Guess that is natural. Your ever-loving and faithful husband. It's always touching.
I can't help but think what it'd be like if this happened now. Like if we were in the middle of a world war, we would be using our cell phones to reach out to our loved ones. We'd be doing like FaceTime on Skype or whatever the other services there are. I really think that writing letters. I think writing letters has really become like a bygone era, to be honest.
Can't help but think back all the time,
Your ever-loving and faithful husband. Those were Staff Sergeant Sumter Grubb's last words to his wife Peggy, written on May 19th, 1944. Within months, Sumter was killed in combat, but his words would not die.
Okay, so we got some an update here. Let me turn off my cam. 2 additional letters eventually made it to their rightful destinations. Okay.
Tonight we've seen 4 mysteries. 4 true stories of people caught in the most extraordinary circumstances. For each mystery, someone, somewhere, knows the truth. Perhaps it's you.
Okay, so let's check out the Unsolved Mysteries wiki, shall we? So let's do this, do that, and then we'll do this. Okay, so let me take this off. Undelivered World War II letters. The real name is unknown because there was just a lot of people in this case. The case was Lost Heirs. So it was Lost Heirs, not Lost Loves. My bad, guys. The location was Raleigh, North Carolina. The date was February 4th, 1986. God, I was still 4 years old at the time. It's amazing how much time passes, isn't it? You're aware that you're getting older and whatnot, but it isn't until you see that number, like it really starts to hit you. Like, oh my God, I was only 4 years old when this happened. Ugh. And here I am. I'm almost 40, 44, 45. Anyway. Okay, let's scroll down. Extra notes. This case first aired on the May 6th special number 6 episode. 1988 special number 6 episode of Unsolved Mysteries. During the filming of the show, Merrill Rapley met with Mike Minguez and thanked him for finding the letters. Baseball player Walt Droppo was aboard the Caleb Strong and had written one of the letters to his mother. Some sources state 93 soldiers on the Caleb Strong wrote 237 letters. When the war was over, the elderly woman's nephew figured it was too late to mail the letters. It's never too late. It's never too late. And the bag was found in April 1986. He should have just gave it to them anyway, like if it was me and my wife went off to World War II, whatever, or I went off to World War II, I would want my loved one to get that final letter. It doesn't matter if it's one day after the war or 100 years after the war. I would want my final thoughts to be heard, or read in this case. Okay, so we got solved. Let's just scroll down a little bit. Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. I'll just start here. On February 22nd, 1989, Postmaster General Anthony Frank presented Clarence's letter to Norman at a ceremony in Washington, D.C., making the completion of the deliveries. Norman thanked Mike Rodriguez for finding the letters and Pierre for tracking him down. He said the letters brought back memories of Clarence. At the ceremony, Norman read Clarence's letter to their mother. Hello, Mother. I sure hope you are well today. Are well. Today may be the last letter you will receive from me here, so don't worry if you don't hear from me for a while. Well, today I spent most of my time playing cards and checkers. 2 exciting games. Boy, I sure will be glad to see payday around when we haven't been paid for 2 months. Wow. Well, I'll close now. I'll write as soon as I am able. I don't know why they didn't put any periods here. I get a little bit confused when I'm reading this. Take good care of yourself. I hope there is mail by the time and good night. Your son, I love you, buddy. On April 13th, 1990, Peggy Campbell passed away at the age of 76. On August 24th, Merrill Rapley passed away at the age of 73. It's sad that they passed away, but I am honestly glad that they were able to get that last communication from their loved ones. Because like I said, there's something special about getting like that final goodbye from somebody that you love. Okay, let's open these 2 up. Okay, so first off, we have Everett Merrill Page Rapley. And if I remember correctly, I think this is the one, Miss Rapley. I think she was the one that went 44 years as a widow. Like I said, that is loyalty that you can't find anywhere else. Her date of birth was June 17th, 1917 in Riddleville, Washington County, Georgia, USA. Her date of death was August 24th, 1990 in Augusta, Richmond County, Georgia, USA. She is buried at Brownwood Cemetery in Sandersville, Washington County, Georgia. And here we have her information. Her father was a reverend. Date of birth 1878 to 1944. Her mother 1887 to 1954. She had two siblings. One was 1910 to 1972, and the other was 1913 to 1954. And then her husband 1919 to 1942. They were married 1942. So it looks like her oldest, or the person who lived the longest out of this entire group, it was Joseph Cecil Page, and he passed away in 1972. So sadly, by the sounds of it, unless she has like grandchildren, which I'm sure she possibly does, this entire family may sadly have come to an end. Okay, let's take a look at some photos here. We have this nice picture. It looks like this could be part of her, like attached to her resting place. And, yep, it is. Here's the picture right there. And then here we have Everett and her husband. Okay, let's swing on by Margaret May Peggy McDermott Kimball. Date of birth, October 2nd, 1913, in Cleveland, in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, USA. Date of death was April 13th, 1990, age 76. Her location was Grand Falls, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, USA. She was buried at Evergreen Hill Cemetery in Grand Falls, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, USA. Location was section 14, lot 25, space 1. And she actually has a slightly larger family, it looks like. Let's see, her father was born 1885 to 1947. Mother was born 1886 to 1964. She had two spouses. First spouse was 1909 to 1944. They were married 1938. Second husband was 1915 to 1964. And then she had 6 siblings. 1908 to 1964, 1910 to 1992, 1912 to 1989, 1918 to 1977, 1920 to 2001, and then finally 1924 to 2009. Let's see here. And then we have a couple pictures here. This is from the video itself of her reading the letter. And then her final resting spot. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the case of the undelivered World War II letters, or V-mail, basically. It's nice to actually end these episodes on a high note, especially when you have like it's just a downer case after downer case after downer case. It's nice to end an episode with something that can make you smile. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. When I come back, it will be with the closing credits. So stay tuned. I'll be right back.